Auburn. Auburn.
Auburn.
Auburn.
Well, you're probably right, but that's the way I say it. Honey, you say things so funny. I'm a New Yorker. What to do?
Even in the US, there are so many different accents.
So let's concentrate for a few moments. Tuesday night we had nearly 100 people for the home choir. And I met an Irish lady, elderly lady, who had incredible experiences in the Matrimandia chamber. She saw Mother and Sri Aurobindo in the crystal, smiling at her. And then she said, they changed. And Mother was on the left and Sri Aurobindo right. What does it mean, Narad? I said, they're telling you that they're one. So we'll begin with Ashwapati's experiences, and we look just a few lines before we begin. And we have seen that rivers poured down of bliss and luminous force, vistas of visits of beauty, storm sweeps of delight, rained from the all-powerful mystery above. I discussed the mystery with you briefly, and the first definition in the dictionary of mystery is a spiritual truth that is incomprehensible to reason and knowledgeable only through divine revelation. That's pretty good for dictionary. Now the next line starts our discussion tonight. Thence stooped the eagles of omniscience. I spoke to Alok at length about this, and he says that these are the messengers of truth and light that stoop down from the empire of the supramental sun and fill the aspirant to truth with intuitive insights. When I spoke to Nolini, he said, it is the image of the powerful soaring of the divine. A dense veil was rent, a mighty whisper heard, repeated in the privacy of his soul, a wisdom cry from rapt transcendences, sang on the mountains of an unseen world. In this case, rapt is almost carried off spiritually to another place, another sphere of existence. But we can also say that it's they are enraptured or ecstatic, something that is rapt, R-A-P-T, and sang on the mountains of an unseen world. Well, it's this wisdom cry, this cry of wisdom from the eagles of omniscience that are singing on the mountains of an unseen world. Then he tells us the voices that an inner listening hears conveyed to him their prophet utterances and flame-wrapped outbursts of the immortal word. So we see that these voices can only be heard through an inner listening. And I will share with you my first experiences with Sri Aurobindo. It'll make you laugh a little bit. As you enter the ashram and go up the steps and turn right to go towards the samadhi, there was, before the reading room, there's a small room. They have blocked it off now. No one is allowed there anymore. Terrible thing they've done. This was the place where Mother used to give soup. And she would take a sip of that soup from a spoon, and from the same spoon give to each disciple. Sri Aurobindo's sepia photograph is there. And I asked Aurobindo Basu, why do I always go first to that room and prostrate myself? He said, because he has put the presence in that photo. And indeed it is. So one day, I'm bowing down, and there's a couple of other people, and he speaks to me. He gives me 4 lines of poetry, the first 4 lines I ever wrote. And now I have to remember, but I'm not getting it yet. Yes. These are the currents of my life. Engulf them in thy sea. The tangled threads of earthly strife reweave to image thee. My first 4-line poem. Now, another time I go there, and this time I'm sort of feeling a bit holy, and I prostrate myself fully on the floor. And he speaks to me again. And what does he say? He says, and it's good for the circulation too. Okay, so we hear these voices through the inner listening. And they're conveying to Ashwapati their prophet utterances. What is going to happen? And flame-wrapped outbursts of the immortal word. Now, I don't know if I've shared this with you, but I have to read it again because it's from the Future Poetry, not a book that everyone reads. Sri Aurobindo writes, the word is a sound expression of the idea. In the supraphysical plane, when an idea has to be realized, one can, by repeating the word expression of it, produce vibrations which prepare the mind for the realization of the idea. That is the principle of mantras and of japa. One repeats the name of the divine, and the vibrations created in the consciousness prepare the realization of the divine. It is the same idea that is expressed in the Bible. God said, let there be light, and there was light. It is creation by the word. It's very important. And of course, Sri Aurobindo capitalizes word in that line. And flashes of an occult revealing light. And I have another quote that has 2 quotes that have to be shared with you. But first, Sri Aurobindo is going to describe light to us. And he tells us that light is primarily a spiritual manifestation of the divine reality, illuminative and creative. Material light is a subsequent representation or conversion of it into matter for the purposes of material energy. And then lastly, this most beautiful quote. Our sense, by its incapacity, has invented darkness. In truth, there is nothing but light. Only it is a power of light either above or below our poor human vision's limited range. For do not imagine that light is created by the suns. The suns are only physical concentrations of light, but the splendor they concentrate for us is self-born and everywhere. And he closes, God is everywhere. And wherever God is, there is light. And that's from the Hour of God. Mother tells us that light is a general term. Light is not knowledge, but the illumination that comes from above and liberates the being from obscurity and darkness. The light, well, that's enough. So
if you
this...
want to add that quote, it's famous one in Savitri, by light we live.
And to the light we go. By light we live, and to the light we go.
He says, by light we live.
By light we live, okay.
To the light we go.
Really, there's a third one that says?
Should be enough
I
to
really
know that
thought there was from light
to know that we live by light and we go to the light. So all of this manifestation now is the ignorance. We are in the lowest, I would say, stage of the ignorance. Body, life, and mind. The moment we get just above the ignorance into the higher mind, we enter the spiritual planes. We've discussed the spiritual planes many times. So what has happened now? We have a full stop coming up, so flashes of an occult revealing light approached him from the unreachable secrecy. Now he's going to tell us more. He's going to tell us about this knowledge. An inspired knowledge sat enthroned within. This knowledge is something that Sri Aurobindo emphasizes in all of his works. Synthesis, essays on the Gita, essays divine and human, letters on yoga, the synthesis of yoga, essays on the Gita. So I'll just read a couple of brief ones. Knowledge is a child with its achievements. For when it has found out something, it runs about the streets whooping and shouting. Wisdom conceals hers for a long time in a thoughtful and mighty silence. In the Essays Divine and Human again, he says, What men call knowledge is the reasoned acceptance of false appearances. Wisdom looks behind the veil and sees. So I have to go back to the last line. An inspired knowledge sat enthroned within. Enthroned, here's an interesting word because it means it sits as if on a throne. It is so high, whose seconds illumined more than reason's years. And this is why Sri Aurobindo says that reason is only a halfway step. We have to get above reason. We have to get above duality. An ictus of revealing luster fell, as if a pointing accent upon truth. I'll just do that first line, an ictus. An ictus is a stroke or a beat. In music and prosody, the stress or accent marking the rhythm. So, it was the hour before the gods awake. So we see the first line of Savitri, perfect iambic pentameter. And this ictus, this stroke that marks the rhythm, the intensity of delivery of one syllable or note from a different one. So we have Savitri written in iambic pentameter. Now an iamb, I-A-M-B, is a beat. It was the hour before the gods awake. Short, long. It was da-dum, bum-bum, bum-bum. Short, long is an iamb, and pentameter, of course, is 5 beats in the line. And the entire Savitri is written in iambic pentameter, following in the footsteps, we could say, of the great epic writers, Virgil, Homer, Milton. They all wrote in iambic pentameter. Amazing. Quatrameter is very beautiful also. Trimeter is okay, but the power is in iambic pentameter.
It's the natural rhythm of the English language.
Yes, it is. An ictus of revealing luster fell. See, it fell down into him, as if a pointing accent upon truth. And there is so much on truth. And I'll just quote a couple things, two from Mother, one from the Human Cycle, where Sri Aurobindo says, truth is the secret of life and power. Do we live in truth? We're working at it. Mother says, the truth is something living, moving, expressing itself at each second. And it is one way of approaching the Supreme. Then again, she says, the truth is not linear, but global. It is not successive, but simultaneous. Therefore, it cannot be expressed in words. It has to be lived. And then her last comment, which should apply strongly to each of us. Truth is a difficult and strenuous conquest. One must be a real warrior to make this conquest. A warrior who fears nothing, neither enemies nor death. For with or against everybody, and now listen to this, with or without a body, the struggle continues and will end by victory. And like a sky flare showing all the ground, a swift, intuitive discernment shone. Alliteration. A swift discernment shone. There is so much in Savitri. We can only touch a little of it, even in these evenings. One could go through this same passage again and again and find so many new things, because he has written it from so far above our human mind that our human mind is incapable of understanding it. Mother says, read a page or two a day, and she talks to Huta. Huta was a very good friend of mine, and we would meet very often, and she would tell me the things that Mother was saying to her. She met Mother every day for years and years and years. And she was a difficult lady, a young lady in the beginning. I remember one instance where Mother came out of her room as Huta was walking in, and she gave Huta a vase of flowers, and Huta shattered them on the ground. But she was one like Sat Prem, who was very close to Mother, because Mother had to work something through her as she does through all of us. So this discernment, basically it means the process of having keen insight or keen perception and acuteness of judgment, discrimination, and understanding. Now I've come to the end of that, so I have to go to the next one, 38. Here we are. One glance could separate the true and false. Whose glance is that? Of course, it's Sri Aurobindo, using his pseudonym Ashrapati. Or raise its rapid torch fire in the dark to check the claimants crowding through mind's gates, covered by the forged signatures of the gods. This is a difficult passage we're getting into now, because Sri Aurobindo developed the ability, with one glance, he could separate the true and the false. And he could check these claimants, these beings, these forces who come crowding through mind's gates. And he speaks to this and tells Lily that he will go through this silencing of the mind if it does not affect his yoga. And Lily agrees. And in one day, actually, they say 3 days, but in one day, he had stopped everything coming into his mind. He had the totally blank mind. Because these claimants are what we would call asuras, or the lower ones down to the pisachas who just want to disturb us a little bit and enjoy themselves. And we can see that when we get angry. Is it our anger truly? You get angry with someone, is it you who are getting angry with them? Or is it this fellow who's been with you for so many years and says, I can get in there now and make you very angry? So he is able to do that. And these claimants, interestingly, are covered by the forged signatures of the gods. Now, I have heard this and I have read this, and I don't know where it is. And no one has been able to tell me where it is. But it was Nolini's experience. It's night, he's preparing to go to sleep, and he wants to go and do his pranams at the samadhi. As he's walking towards the samadhi, he sees Sri Aurobindo, golden, beautiful. And he walks up to Sri Aurobindo, and he's about to do obeisance to Sri Aurobindo, and he sees that the being has a cleft foot. He said, had I bowed to him, I would have been destroyed.
What is a cleft foot?
The toes are, you know, the devil's cleft foot?
Ah.
Yeah. Yeah, incredible. So these lower gods are the claimants that these beings use to gain entry into us.
Is it inside the ashram, Narad?
Pardon?
Is it inside the ashram? These beings are roaming around.
And in Aurobindo also. And having a great time also. Okay. Sorry to say that. But Ashrapati is able to detect the magic bride in her disguise. And the magic bride here is the Divine Mother in the form of Savitri. Or scan the apparent face of thought and life. What is this apparent face of thought and life? It is our lower range of consciousness. Because what is our thought but just based on education, experience, environment, all of these things? We think we know something. We don't know anything. We truly don't know anything. The best that we can do now in Aurobindo and the ashram is learn to surrender to the Mother, to offer whatever we are and whatever is in us that has to be purified, offer everything to her. And that will save years of tapasya, that offering to her. It can be done by a rigorous tapasya, and many yogis have done it. But we have the Mother, and she can lift it from us in an instant. Things that have troubled us from lives before, many lives before. Because when she looked at us, she saw everything. She saw our past, she saw our present, and she saw the possibilities for the future. And she spoke to me about them. It's amazing. I'm a young kid, and his mother's telling me these things. This is possible, this is possible. the music she talks to me about, and then later on the gardening. I would like you to build the gardens of the Matrimandir. Well, it's a fruitless work right now. And I tell you, I'm there because I don't accept the fruits of action. They all belong to the divine. If they tear up my work, divine's problem, not mine. I have to give what I can give from my inner being and accept whatever criticism or destruction happens. And now they are spending crores and crores of money building a garden that has been over 1 year, a garden of light, and they want to put tiny little beds. Oh, I won't go anymore. That's enough.
Tiny little beds of flowers?
Huh?
Tiny little beds.
Yeah,
of
little
flowers?
beds, and they just want lots of grass and
Okay.
okay. Let's concentrate a few moments.
Alright. Did Mother explain to you why she gave you the name March and whether